You don't realize your life has become a lie until it crumbles around you. Until the woman you've sacrificed for, the one you trusted with everything, turns out to be playing you like a game. People always imagine betrayal as loud, shouting, slammed doors, broken glass. Mine was quiet, surgical. The betrayal happened in whispers, late-night texts, and meetings that were never really about business. Her name was Rachel. For 12 years, she was my wife. My ride or die, or so I believed. We met in college. I was focused, hungry to build something. She was lightning in a bottle. I was structure, she was spark. She pulled me out of my shell, and I thought I gave her security. The first few years were golden. We moved in together after graduation. I started my logistics consulting business. She talked about launching a home-based startup. I believed in her. I believed in us. We married at 25. I built the business up to a 7-figure operation. We upgraded apartments twice. Bought a luxury car. But it was all in her name. The apartment, the car, even the accounts. My idea, actually. You're my partner, I'd said. This is our life. What a fool I was. She claimed her home business kept her busy. Erratic hours, lots of phone calls, occasional travel. I never questioned it. I was too busy working 14-hour days, grinding, building. I brought the money in, she managed the house. It was a good arrangement. Or so I thought. Then the inconsistencies started. The late-night texts. The mysterious charges. Her sudden obsession with privacy. Locking her phone. Stepping outside to take calls. Changing her passwords. Even her laugh changed. She used to laugh with abandon. Now it was different. Controlled. Secretive. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I paid attention. When you suspect the person you love is lying to you, the worst thing you can do is tip your hand too early. So I played the loyal husband. The patient man. Then it happened. She was walking by, phone in hand. A text popped up. Can't wait to see you again, Brian. Brian. Our lawyer. The guy who helped us set up our estate planning documents. Who'd been a guest at our holiday dinners. Who'd toasted our 5th anniversary. The moment I saw his name, everything slowed. And then something clicked. She wasn't just unfaithful. She was planning to replace me. I smiled. I told her she looked tired. Encouraged her to take more time for her business. Suggested she meet with Brian more often to sort out tax stuff. That night, I called Connor, a friend from my ROTC days who now ran a private investigations firm. I need full surveillance. Discreet, thorough, and fast. Trouble? Connor asked. About to be. Within days, the reports came in. GPS data. Hotel stays. Recordings. She wasn't even cautious. They met at boutique hotels in the city, places we'd stayed during our early anniversaries. She laughed at me, called me boring, said I was too wrapped up in work to see what was right in front of me. Every recording was another knife. Every snapshot of her and Brian together twisted it deeper. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I planned. I created a new shell corporation and quietly transferred my company's ownership and assets into it. I rerouted bank accounts, set up new ones overseas, and hired a forensic accountant. I started logging every expense Rachel made, especially those made from our joint account that benefited her and Brian. And I documented everything. 300 pages of evidence. Every lie, every financial transgression, every secret meeting. My PI even captured audio from the hallway of a hotel suite. Her voice, unmistakable, saying, "He has no idea. I'll walk away with half, and he'll still thank me for it." Not this time. I waited 6 weeks. Then I made my move. The hardest part about planning revenge isn't the rage, it's the patience. The waiting. The pretending. Every morning, I'd wake up next to Rachel, kiss her cheek, and wish her a good day. I'd make coffee like nothing was wrong, tell her she looked beautiful, and listen to her talk about nothing. All the while, I was memorizing everything. Her habits, her lies, her routines. I became an actor in my own life, performing a role I knew would soon end. She thought I was clueless. She thought I was still her safety net. The man too in love, too tired, too dull to see what was really going on. And I used that. Connor's team fed me updates daily. GPS pings. Hotel stays. Screen captures. Brian's car parked at her favorite cafe. Her smiling, touching his arm like they were some kind of high school couple playing house in broad daylight. But the real trap was financial. I met with Melissa Zhang, a forensic accountant Connor recommended. Sharp, meticulous, and as ruthless as I needed her to be. She combed through every bank statement, every shared credit account, every cash withdrawal. You see this pattern? She asked, pointing to a sequence of transactions. Yeah, weekend getaways and lingerie. Also potential fraud, she said. She's moving funds from your joint savings to an account under her name. Small amounts, but frequent. This isn't careless. It's premeditated. That word hit me like a sledgehammer. Premeditated. Rachel wasn't just cheating. She was preparing to leave and take half of everything I'd worked for with her. So I prepared too. I had my lawyer, Sophia Mendez, draft documents to restructure ownership of my company. The Shell Corporation, Brightstone Holdings, now owned 100% of my firm. On paper, I was just an employee, drawing a modest salary. All assets, real estate, equipment, intellectual property moved into Brightstone's name. Make it airtight, I told her. Legally bulletproof. You got it, she said. Next, I quietly froze our joint credit cards under the pretense of suspicious activity. I rerouted bills and subscription services. I opened a new checking account in another bank and began transferring money in small amounts, nothing that would trigger alarms. Melissa called it the drip method. You don't yank the rug, she said. You pull one thread at a time until it unravels. Meanwhile, Rachel continued her act. She scheduled a couple's brunch with Brian and his new girlfriend. I declined, said I was tired. She shrugged, kissed me goodbye, and left in a red dress I'd bought her 2 years ago. That evening, I reviewed security footage. Connor's team had installed discrete cameras in common areas of our home weeks ago. Nothing in private rooms, just enough to capture hallway chats, phone calls, occasional interactions. There she was, talking on the phone while I was supposedly at the gym. He's still clueless, she said, pouring wine. He's obsessed with work. I could disappear for a week and he'd probably just think I'm networking. She laughed. Brian laughed on the other end. I didn't. I forwarded the clip to Sophia. We'll hold this, she said. Could be useful in court. The thing about traps is they require bait. And I let Rachel feel like she was winning. I bought her a spa package. Booked her a weekend away with the girls. She gushed. Called me sweet. Said I was finally relaxing more. I smiled. You deserve it. While she was gone, I met with a cybersecurity expert to secure all my devices. He wiped old backups, encrypted my cloud, and set up remote logging to track all activity on our shared home network. Then I called Connor. Can you get me copies of her messages? Already ahead of you. You'll have them by Monday. The messages made me physically ill. The jokes. The belittling. The way she painted me as a fool. A fallback plan. He's emotionally dull, she wrote. Good guy, but boring as drywall. Brian's exciting. He makes me feel alive. Brian replied, Don't worry. Once we finalize the papers, you'll have everything you need. Papers? So it was true. They were planning to divorce me. Quietly. Strategically. They thought they had time. I made copies of the messages. Printed transcripts. Forwarded everything to Melissa and Sophia. This is enough to build a rock-solid case, Sophia said. But we need a trigger event. Something public. Something she can't spin. It's coming, I replied. Rachel returned from her weekend away glowing. Hugged me. Kissed me. Said we should start planning a vacation. Anywhere you want, she said. You've been working so hard. I nodded. You're right. I think it's time we took a break. The trap was ready. I just needed the perfect moment to spring it. There's something strange about watching a liar believe their own lies. Rachel was glowing. That's the only way I can describe it. She floated through the house like she'd won the lottery, carefree, flirtatious, doting even. She began planning vacations, redecorating the living room, and hinting about getting a second property, something for the future. Our future, she meant. Only, I knew better. Because while she painted herself as the perfect wife, my private investigator kept sending me photos, audio, and timelines that told another story. She and Brian were meeting more often, and in increasingly public places. There were no signs of caution. They'd gone from sneaking around to flaunting it. A dangerous shift. One that told me she thought she was invincible. She thinks you're defeated, Connor said one night over drinks. That's the mask slipping. Arrogance always reveals the truth. He was right. Rachel's text to Brian became riskier. One message I read while sipping my morning coffee said, He's so wrapped up in work again. Poor guy. Sometimes I almost feel bad. Almost. I kept my poker face strong. At breakfast, I told her about a new contract my company was negotiating. She nodded, smiling, and told me how proud she was. I played my role so well, I half believed it myself. But inside, I was taking inventory of every lie, every insult, every plan she was making to steal the life I'd built. The trap was nearly set, but I needed to push her a little further. Get her to step into the open just enough to ensure she couldn't walk it back later. So I gave her room to run. I started working from home less. Late meetings, business trips, weekends at networking retreats. Each time, I'd leave and monitor remotely. The house was wired. The internet was logged. And every text she sent, every call she made, was recorded. During one of these retreats, Rachel invited Brian over. They didn't even try to be subtle. He parked in my spot in the driveway. She made him dinner. They drank wine, laughed, kissed, danced, talked about their future. I watched in silence from a hotel room in Chicago, jaw clenched, heart strangely still. The audio played like a scene from a play I never wanted tickets to. Do you think he suspects anything? Brian asked. If he does, he's not showing it, she said. Honestly, I think he's just relieved I'm happy again. Happy. With Brian. My jaw didn't clench anymore. I felt calm. Mechanical. Like the part of me that once loved her had finally gone dark. I sent the recording to Sophia. We're almost there, she replied. If we get one more piece, proof of financial intent or a direct plan to file, we can act. That weekend, Rachel came home late from a girls' night. Sorry, she said, slipping off her heels, cheeks flushed. We lost track of time. Wine and laughter. You know how it goes. I smiled. Glad you had fun. She kissed me goodnight and went to bed. I stayed up in the kitchen and opened the latest PI report. There it was. Her dinner wasn't with the girls. It was with Brian. Restaurant receipt, time-stamped photos, and a short video clip of them slow dancing in a place she'd once said was ours. The next morning, I asked her casually, "How's Olivia? Haven't seen her in a while." She blinked. "Oh, she's good. We had fun last night." "Must have," I said, stirring my coffee. She posted a picture at home with her kids. Looked like she was there all evening. The smile cracked. Just a flicker. But I saw it. "Oh, maybe she left early," Rachel said, turning to the sink. You know how time blends. That was the moment. The mask slipping for real. She was nervous now. I'd poked the illusion. And illusions don't handle pressure well. That week, Rachel began checking my schedule more often, asking more questions, trying to gauge what I knew. But I gave her nothing. I let her stew, let her spin. Then came the mistake. She called a lawyer. Not Brian. Someone new. Sophia flagged it immediately. She had access to the background systems and noticed the inquiry. Rachel was planning to file. Quietly. Strategically. She'd get the paperwork ready and hand it to me after she'd drained what she could. But she was too late. Sophia and I had already filed. The paperwork was locked. The court date was set. All I needed now was the final scene. The public collapse. The unmasking. So I set the date. Her birthday. She'd planned a party. Small gathering. Friends, wine, laughter. She wanted to feel loved. Celebrated. I'd give her a moment to remember. You sure about this? Connor asked. She wants a stage, I said. Let her have one. We prepared everything. Files. Statements. Video clips. Transcripts. A simple manila envelope handed to her during the toast. The party was on Saturday. By Sunday, she'd know who she really married. There's a moment, just before everything falls apart, when the air feels different. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive calm. The house smelled like fresh coffee and vanilla candles, Rachel's favorite blend for hosting. She moved through the kitchen like a choreographed dancer, setting the table, arranging wine glasses, fixing her hair in the hallway mirror. She was in her element, radiant and composed, basking in the attention of the coming celebration. Her birthday. I watched her with a kind of detachment, like an anthropologist observing a performance from a foreign culture. Every movement she made was a calculated piece of a lie she no longer realized was fiction. She didn't suspect a thing. The guests arrived around 6. Close friends, a few coworkers, even Brian, though he kept his distance from me. I shook his hand like a gentleman, held his gaze just long enough to make him wonder. He smiled, but his eyes flickered. Rachel was glowing. Toasts were made. Stories were shared. She laughed louder than usual, kissed me on the cheek in front of everyone, playing the part to perfection. Then came the moment. I stood at the end of the table, raising my glass. To my beautiful wife, who never ceases to surprise me. The room clapped. Then I reached into my jacket, and pulled out the envelope. "This is for you," I said, handing it to her with a smile. "A little something I've been working on." She looked confused but delighted. Tore it open with the kind of flourish only someone this self-assured could manage. She didn't make it past the second page. Her face froze. I scanned line after line. Financial reports, GPS logs, photographs, text transcripts, screenshots. Her hands began to tremble. "What is this?" she whispered. I spoke calmly, clearly. "It's everything. Every lie. Every meeting. Every dollar you tried to hide. Every time you thought I was too blind to notice." Silence. Brian backed away slowly, trying not to draw attention. He failed. Everyone was watching. "I filed 3 days ago," I continued. "Full divorce petition. With costs. Fraud, infidelity, financial misconduct. It's all there." She looked up at me, her mouth opening, closing. No words came. "Happy birthday," I said. I walked out. Behind me, gasps. Murmurs. One of the guests said, "Oh my God." Someone dropped a glass. Rachel called my name. I didn't turn around. Outside, the air was crisp. For the first time in months, I felt clean. Lighter. I got into my car and drove. Not away. Just forward. That night, my phone exploded with messages. Friends. Family. Even some of Rachel's circle, apologizing, saying they didn't know. But some did. And I'd remember. The next day, Sophia called. "That was bold," she said. "It needed to be," I replied. "We're getting responses. Her lawyer already contacted us. They're in full damage control. Let them try." Court proceedings were expedited. Rachel tried to salvage her image, posted smiling photos, vague captions about new beginnings and choosing growth. But the people who'd been at the party knew. And word spread fast. Brian lost clients. His firm suspended impending review. Rachel's fake business was audited. The IRS began sniffing around. The account she used to stash money was frozen. Legally. Quietly. I stayed silent. No interviews. No online rants. Just the facts. The paperwork. The proof. Control is quiet. Revenge is patient. The gathering storm had broken. But the fallout? That was only beginning. After the party, Rachel stopped pretending. The woman who once floated around our home humming to herself and planning dinner parties now moved like a ghost. She barely spoke. Avoided eye contact. She was a storm cloud, gathered, brittle, ready to explode. But I was ready too. The day after the party, she didn't come home. She stayed at her sister's, or at least that's what she claimed. I didn't ask. I didn't care. The silence in the house was a relief. Every echo off the walls sounded like freedom. When she did return 3 days later, she entered cautiously, like stepping into a minefield. "You embarrassed me," she said flatly, standing by the door, arms crossed. "You exposed yourself," I replied. "You had no right." "I had every right. It's my life. My name. My business. You tried to rewrite my story without my consent. That stops now." She didn't respond. Just stood there, red-faced, trembling. Then she went upstairs without another word. That night, I changed the locks. She had her keys. I had the legal upper hand. Her lawyer tried to negotiate. Reframe the situation. Accuse me of emotional cruelty. Sophia shut that down with a single folder of evidence. Financial documents. Recordings. A copy of her emails to Brian outlining how to maximize the divorce. The judge reviewed everything. Rachel's attorney knew they were cornered. They tried to push for mediation. We declined. 2 weeks later, a temporary hearing confirmed what we expected. She had no claim to the business. No income history. No proof of contributions. The apartment? Purchased through the company before marriage, still technically a business asset. The car? Financed through a business lease. Her leverage evaporated. Rachel lashed out. She went to mutual friends. Claimed I'd been cold, controlling. Said she made a mistake, but I was punishing her unfairly. Some friends listened. Most didn't. The truth has a gravitational pull. People can feel it even when they don't want to admit it. Then Brian's firm dropped him. Ethics review pending. A formal complaint filed by Sophia's office. He was done. Rachel tried contacting me directly. Sent long emails. Half apologies wrapped in blame. Emotional appeals mixed with veiled threats. I didn't reply. Instead, I filed a request for expedited judgment, citing emotional harm and financial endangerment. 3 days later, we were back in court. Rachel looked different. Smaller. As if she'd lost inches of pride along with her case. Sophia stood and read our final statement. Calm, professional, devastating. The judge nodded slowly. I've seen enough. He granted me everything I requested. Divorce, approved. Assets, retained. Compensation, ordered. Rachel sat in stunned silence. No tears. Just a numb expression, like she'd fallen asleep in a fire and woken up in smoke. When we exited the courthouse, the wind had picked up. I took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I wasn't holding anything back. Rachel walked past me, staring straight ahead. No eye contact. No words. I watched her go. That night, I packed my last bag, transferred the final funds, turned off the lights in the apartment, and locked the door one last time. I left her a letter on the kitchen counter. Nothing bitter. Just the truth. You lost a good man. Not because you made a mistake, but because you built a life on lies and assumed no one would ever call your bluff. You were wrong. Goodbye. Then I left the key beside it. Fallout isn't dramatic. It's not the explosion. It's the silence afterward. The dust, the ash, the uncomfortable truths that settle into every corner of your life. After I walked away from the apartment, I stayed with a friend for a week. Just long enough to sort through everything: bank transitions, the final sale of my company's old holdings, and signing the lease on a new place across the city. Somewhere with light. Space. No ghosts. Word spread fast. Rachel's name started coming up in conversations she never wanted to be part of. Friends who once gushed about our perfect couple began to share suspicions they'd buried. A neighbor told me they'd seen Brian's car too many times to count. Even her family, once skeptical of me, quietly reached out. My sister's not who I thought she was, her younger brother wrote in a message. I'm sorry. Sorry. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. I didn't respond to the messages immediately. I needed space. Breathing room. Rachel, meanwhile, tried damage control. Social media posts about growth, forgiveness, self-care. Carefully curated photos of her smiling in cafes, at yoga classes, brunches with women who hadn't yet heard, or who pretended not to. But the story was out. The truth had teeth. Brian vanished from public view. His profile went dark. His firm quietly removed him from the roster. Sophia filed a follow-up claim: malicious collusion, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We weren't after money. We wanted the record to reflect the truth. And it did. Court orders finalized. Rachel was granted minimal support. Her attempts to gain partial ownership of my future earnings were denied. Her name was stripped from every property, account, and record tied to my business life. She was left with a small bank account, a tarnished name, and a story that didn't end the way she planned. I stayed silent. No statements. No retaliation. I didn't need to shout. The facts spoke for themselves. One evening, about a month after the final ruling, I ran into one of our old friends, Ben, at a coffee shop. Man, he said, I still can't believe it. She always looked like she had it together. Most liars do, I said. You good? Better than ever. He nodded, then leaned in. Just between us, she's been calling people. Crying. Saying she didn't think you'd actually go through with it. She thought I'd stay the fool, I said. She was wrong. Ben hesitated. You ever think of forgiving her? I looked out the window. A new couple was laughing at a table nearby, holding hands like they hadn't learned yet how cruel love could be. I forgave her the moment I stopped caring, I said. That's why I'm free. That night, I turned off my old phone for the last time. I opened a clean line. New number. Fresh contacts. My world was mine again. And in the quiet aftermath, something else started to grow. Not revenge. Not anger. Hope. There's a strange numbness that comes after closure. Not sadness. Not relief. Just stillness. With the dust finally settled, I began the slow process of letting go, not of pain or betrayal, but of the version of me that allowed it to happen. The man who gave endlessly. Who loved blindly. Who thought loyalty alone was enough to build a life. I wasn't that man anymore. The apartment was sold. My old office was shut down. Brightstone Holdings was stronger than ever, and I had begun transferring operations overseas: more autonomy, less baggage. I spent my evenings unpacking boxes in my new home. White walls, hardwood floors, open windows, and a view that didn't carry memories. But closure comes in pieces. One day, I found a box I hadn't opened since before the divorce. Inside was our wedding album. Dusty. Heavy. I sat on the edge of the couch, flipping pages like I was skimming someone else's life. Her smile in those photos wasn't fake. That's what struck me most. She had loved me. Or at least, she thought she did. So what changed? Did I? Did she? Did we become victims of routine? Or was betrayal always part of her wiring? I didn't know. And for the first time, I realized it didn't matter. The man in those pictures had done his best. That was enough. I closed the album, slid it back into the box, and wrote her name on the lid in permanent marker. Then I placed it in storage. Not thrown away. Not burned. Just archived. Like an old file that no longer belonged on the desktop of my life. In the weeks that followed, I started seeing an old friend from college, Elena. We bumped into each other at a charity event months earlier. At first, it was casual. Drinks. Dinner. Long walks where we talked more than touched. She asked about Rachel once. I told her the short version. "I'm sorry," she said. "You deserved better." I shrugged. I deserved truth. And now I have it. We didn't rush anything. There were no declarations, no expectations. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company, who understood the value of silence as much as conversation. Elena had been through her own kind of heartbreak. Not betrayal, grief. She'd lost her brother in an accident. Her empathy ran deep. And that's what I needed now. Not passion. Not validation. Understanding. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, she turned to me and said, "You're not bitter." That's rare. I admitted. But bitterness is just pain pretending to be strength. I outgrew it. She smiled. That's good. Because you carry yourself like someone who's finally ready for peace. I am. The goodbye I needed wasn't to Rachel. It was to the man I used to be, the one who thought love was a contract instead of a choice. I spent one last evening walking past the old apartment. Lights off. Curtains drawn. Empty. I left a note in the mailbox. Thank you for the lessons. I needed every one of them to become the man I am now. We're both free. Make that count. No name. Just that. Then I walked away, not looking back. Freedom has a flavor. It's subtle, like clean air after a storm or the first sip of strong coffee in a quiet room. By now, the divorce was more than a legal line. It was an emotional boundary I no longer had to defend. Rachel was gone. Her name removed from every file, title, and account. Her voice no longer echoed in my home or my thoughts. What remained was the simple clarity of a life entirely my own. But severance wasn't just from her. It was from the echo of obligation. I sold the last piece of shared property we'd acquired, a summer cabin on the edge of a lake she'd never really liked. I kept it through the legal process only because it held potential resale value. Now it held nothing. The sale was clean. No drama. I didn't even go in person. A local agent handled everything. I signed digitally, got the deposit, and poured myself a drink. That evening, I sat alone on the balcony of my new condo. City lights twinkled below. Somewhere out there, Rachel might have been trying to rebuild her world. Maybe Brian had drifted away. Maybe she was still rewriting the story, trying to turn herself into the victim. I didn't care. What I cared about was the quiet. The sense that I no longer owed anyone explanations for who I was, how I loved, or where I failed. Severance is liberation when you've earned it. I took a trip the following week. Not far, just upstate. A small bed and breakfast near a vineyard. No schedule. No demands. Elena joined me for part of it. She arrived with a suitcase, a bottle of Pinot Noir, and a smile that didn't ask for anything. "You okay with company?" she asked at the door. I opened it wide. "Only yours." We spent the days walking among the vines, laughing over dinners, talking about everything and nothing. It wasn't romance. Not yet. It was presence. Trust rebuilding itself in silence. One morning, I found her reading on the porch, legs curled under her, hair messy, eyes scanning a worn paperback. "What are you reading?" I asked, pouring coffee. "A book about starting over," she said, grinning. Seemed appropriate. I handed her a mug and sat beside her. "You think people really start over? Or do they just evolve?" "Both," she said. "Starting over means choosing who you become next." I sipped my coffee. Then I choose peace. Severance had gifted me more than solitude. It gave me control. Direction. It gave me back myself. When the trip ended, we drove back in silence, soft music playing between us. No need to define anything. The journey was enough. Back in the city, I resumed work, quietly, efficiently. Brightstone was expanding. I had a team I trusted. A future I was shaping alone, on my terms. I no longer checked Rachel's social media. I no longer wondered what she said or to whom. The court filings were done. Her appeals were denied. Even her last-ditch effort to claim emotional damages had failed. Severance had been delivered, not just by a judge, but by my own hands. Clean. cold. And with it, I had finally closed the door. Starting over isn't a clean break, it's a slow build. Like laying bricks after a fire, foundation by foundation. 6 months had passed since the final decree. My new life didn't explode into existence. It unfolded. Quietly. Purposefully. Brightstone Holdings opened a satellite office in Lisbon. I spent the first month there, living out of a modest flat above a bakery. I walked the cobbled streets every morning, espresso in hand, no meetings until noon. The pace was different. European. Human. I learned to slow down. The team abroad was sharp, hungry, respectful. They didn't know the old me. Just the man who walked in with experience, focus, and a strange calm that made others lean in when I spoke. That was the new ground. Respect built on presence, not power. Elena visited once. We strolled along the coast, drank Vinho Verde in open-air cafes. We didn't talk much about the past. We didn't need to. She saw me now, not the shadow I used to be. "You seem lighter," she said as we sat watching the sun sink into the Atlantic. "I am. I like this version of you." I looked at her, really looked. "So do I." One night in late autumn, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the curve of the script immediately. Rachel. I held it for a while before opening it. No rush. No fear. Inside was a single page. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I thought I could control the fallout. I was wrong. I hope you're at peace. R." There was no bitterness in me. No triumph. Only a strange gratitude that she had finally said the one thing she'd never said while we were married. I was wrong. I didn't reply. She didn't need a response. Closure had already come. This was just the epilogue. At work, we signed a new international deal. My company crossed its first major milestone abroad, $1 million in net revenue. I celebrated with my team, quietly. No press. No flashy parties. Just a toast, a smile, and a silent acknowledgement of how far I'd come. That weekend, I stood on a cliff near Sintra, the wind in my hair, the sea below. I closed my eyes. There was no past chasing me. No guilt. No woman waiting for me to falter. Only me. And for the first time, that was enough. They say closure is a door you shut quietly, without looking back. A year had passed since the day I handed Rachel that envelope. 12 months. 365 days. And each one had taken me further from the man I used to be. I stood now not as someone trying to heal, but as someone whole. Life had a different texture. Simpler. Cleaner. My mornings were slower. I read more. Ate better. Laughed more, even when no one was around. Elena and I had grown closer. Not fast, not dramatic. Just steady. Like a house built brick by brick. She never asked me for more than I could give. She never made me feel like I had to earn affection. With her, I was enough, exactly as I was. One weekend, we traveled to South Dakota, the town where I'd grown up. Flat fields. Cold wind. The same diner that hadn't changed in 30 years. I showed her my roots, my old house, the river where I first learned what silence really sounded like. "This place feels like it knows you," she said. "It does," I replied. It raised me. That night, by the fireplace in a quiet cabin, I told her everything. Not just the divorce, the betrayal, but the way I lost myself trying to be someone's idea of a perfect man. She listened. No judgment. No pity. Just presence. When I finished, she reached for my hand. "You're not broken," she said. "You're just rebuilt." I kissed her then, not like a man running from pain, but like one running toward peace. In the spring, I returned briefly to the city. My lawyer had wrapped up the final threads. Taxes, asset transfers, legal housekeeping. It was over. On the way out, I passed by our old building. The apartment Rachel and I once called home had new tenants. A couple with a baby stroller. I watched them from across the street. They looked happy. I wished them well. No bitterness. No envy. Just a quiet hope that their story would end differently. Later that week, I gave a guest lecture at a university business class. Someone asked me, "What's the most valuable lesson you've learned in leadership?" I paused. "Protect your peace," I said, "and never build your life on someone else's foundation." The room was silent. Then they clapped. After the session, one student approached me privately. "How do you recover when someone betrays you?" I smiled. "By not betraying yourself." Back in Lisbon, Elena met me at the airport. Her smile made the whole trip worthwhile. "How was it?" she asked. "Necessary," I said. That night, We opened a bottle of wine on the balcony. The stars were out. The city hummed below. This, I said, motioning to the air, the sky, her, this is what home feels like. She nodded. Then let's build it. Together. And so we did. Not in spite of the past, but because I had finally walked all the way through it. Full circle.